chance to chat with luminaries in e-discovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal Brainspace, the industry's leading AI e-discovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to Watch Me, George Socia, weekly with leaders in e-discovery. Thank you for tuning in.
Good morning and welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACES and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socia, heading up brand awareness at Reveal. We are broadcasting live this week from Legal Week with a very different background, obviously, than we usually have. My guest this morning is Mike Gaudet. Mike is with JS Held. We're 3 days into this. We'll see if we get through 4 days. Mike, I'd like you to start first by telling us a little about who you are, what you do, where you're at.
Well, thank you very much for having me, George. It's a pleasure to be on.
Glad to have you.
So I am a computer science major that had no idea what e-discovery was until about 18 years ago. My friend Stephen O'Malley had a job offer that let me pay my rent in Manhattan. Back then, it was a company called FTI, you may have heard of. And that's how I got pulled into the industry. So I was a Java programmer by trade, and I've slowly learned to love or at least tolerate lawyers in this industry.
Well, on behalf of all lawyers, I'm glad you can at least tolerate us.
You're the best of them, George. And Stephen last year went to a company called JS Held to start a digital investigations practice, and I followed him over, and it's been a blast. We went from one person, Stephen, last year, to 30 people this year, and growing.
Impressive growth.
It's been fun. It's been fun building it, and we're part of a bigger global investigations team of about 250 people worldwide, and it's amazing to work with them. And we're sort of the new shiny object in the company. So we get to present technology and try to help them solve their unique problems. So it's really been a fun challenge.
Wonderful. I know that part of what you have to deal with is that pesky problem of getting data from the internet. So do tell.
Absolutely. So, I mean, just like any other data sources now, that it's overflowing with data. I remember the days when, you try to put together a proposal. You got 4 custodians, that's maybe 20 gigabytes. Now I've got cases with 4 or 5 custodians that are a terabyte, and the problem is culling it down. And we do get a lot of stuff off the internet. We work with there's a group at JS Held, Business Intelligence. They're the best at what they do. Tom Burns in New York, Michelle Willoughby and Brian Murphy, my fellow Texans in Houston. These are people who go to the internet, report on what's going on for companies, due diligence, research, tracking down people. They can find you. If I ever do wrong by them, I'm pretty sure they can have me killed. But they need to pull a lot of data and aggregate it from various sources, including, Facebook, Twitter, all types of sources. And so we've been working on lots of, some out of the box, but a lot of custom solutions to pull down that data, analyze it, and visualize it for the investigative teams that don't have armies of contract attorneys or lawyers looking at it. So it's been interesting, and it's a lot of APIs connecting to things like Twitter. There's APIs out there you can plug into. And then there's filtering for keywords. There's sentiment analysis now, which is huge. I know you guys are doing that as well. And so we take a very analytics, AI-based approach to filtering that data down to usable population that they can then report to their clients on what's going on for this merger or potential expansion, things like that. So it's very AI driven. I know that goes well with your Reveal theming.
A very good fit. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you are then going out to a wide variety of sources using APIs and other capabilities to pull that content down, do some filtering. Then what?
Yeah, then it's interesting. So from there's a lot of visual layers we put on top of it. So there's geographies. There's we do word clouds of what are the key topics. a lot of it is trying to find negative sentiment towards various companies and potential threats out there. One of the interesting things that we've been building out is kind of contact maps of who's related to whom. You can get some data about who's retweeting things, and you can then filter based on the type of individual and the types of messages they're tweeting. So, for example, market analysts, you can filter them out to try to find maybe who's really saying something, critical about a company that might be an interesting threat. And then we'll take all of those people and put them in a contact map that then can be shared with clients and discussed in terms of doing an investigative report. So it's all kind of feeding the investigators information they need to report back to the clients. And in some cases, we do this as a one-off, like a merger or acquisition. But in many cases, our clients are kind of active monitorships. And every month, give us a report. What's going on? What's the lay of the land? In my key geographies for expansion, what should I be worried about in terms of political unrest or things like that? So really interesting stuff. So much data out there. The key is just whittling it down.
So how do you go about winnowing down that data? You can only do so much with, say, keyword searches.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. So some of the technology is very much like predictive coding, just for an e-discovery review. So we'll find or tag the things that are interesting to the investigators, and then try to find more things like that, and pull it back until we get a picture. We've got tools that give dashboards at a macro level. We haven't, gotten down to individual coding and production, right? Because that's not really the thrust of it. But one of the things that the investigators also like to use are kind of large concept analytics maps. So similar, BrainSpace. I know you guys do a great job with that. We use that tool regularly to review data. And so one of the goals that we have is connecting a lot of these aggregated data sources from the internet. And there's hundreds of that. Twitter is just one example. We were talking to a company out there that they have 500,000 data sources. And, they can pull from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, but they can also pull data off of a video camera on the street in Tel Aviv. And so you have all this data. You've got flight data, what planes are taking off, where are they going, where's the hedge fund manager going off to which island, right? So all this data kind of comes back, and we've got it aggregated in a dashboard. And then one of the things we're working on is how can we pipe that to a more traditional e-discovery tool for further documentation and review? So BrainSpace would be a great example of something that we could take all that data from the internet as a data source and move it into Reveal for review.
What are some of the big challenges you're facing with getting and working with this content, and then how do you address those challenges?
Yeah, so it's getting all their APIs correctly. It's interesting because there's different business intelligence groups that have different requirements. So there's a little bit of customization for what each group's doing. Some groups do more track and trace. Some groups focus on mergers and acquisitions. I think you hit on the challenge of the question you asked me, which is how do you whittle it down? Because some of these platforms that aggregate data out there, they give you alerts, and you're getting, all these alerts on a regular basis every day with how much data. So the trick is writing the algorithms, doing clever keyword searches, using the analytics to try to get them a reasonable amount of data.
There have been for years now people in the e-discovery space who say we deal with big data, but big data is really velocity, volume, variety, and veracity, and they tend to mean we do a lot of email. It sounds like you are much closer to that big data world. How close are you to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's in all different formats. And so it's, we talked about Twitter, website scrapes, some of these tools can go back in retro to see what the website said, not only yesterday, but what did it say a year ago? Mm-hmm. So there's data on top of data, and it's all kind of boiling it down into text. So, in the past, I've always thought e-discovery is very heavy, right? Because there's all these images and things like that. But if you can grab all the text, which is what people really care about, and you can funnel that down, that's where you can really apply the analytics, because all you need is the text. But it's so many different sources now. And it's funny because I'm getting old, George. I'm in my 40s. So I don't know all the social media sources out there. So the kids on my team, I need to say, wait, what is this iFunny source I need to pull from? Why is that important? So it seems like there's a new data source every week that someone asks me about. I don't even bother to keep track anymore. But It's just all a matter of connecting on the APIs, leveraging some of what's out there. We've got really talented Python programmers and SQL programmers on our team, which is invaluable. So I've learned it's great to have the off-the-shelf tools, but it's even better if you can amplify that with people who can code things on the fly to connect to the latest sources.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, a tool, no matter how well done, can only take you so far, and then you are going to have your own specialized needs. So if you have, as you do, those resources, that can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And, like any other kind of thing that you build, first you build it to make your teams happy in a few use cases, and then, eventually, hopefully we can expose it more broadly and, see what we can do in the industry with it.
What do you see as some of the broader challenges that folks are facing right now?
I think it is a lot of the different data sources, right? Like I think right now, my brother who's on my team and does a great job, he's working through a production and collection of, Teams data, Slack. This is all stuff you've heard before, but it's not only, hey, can you collect to it, but it's how does it look when you get it? A lot of times there's a challenge in presenting it the way that it was accessed, who had access to it. If there was an attachment, was it the version that was sent or was it modified later? These are kind of the annoying challenges of it's hard to just say I checked the box and got the data when the attorneys are reviewing it and they can't make sense of what it is. So I think there's need for us yet in the e-discovery industry as experts to explain and kind of help along that process.
I don't think you need to be worried on that front. There's only going to be more need. A question on the visualization side. We know when you get into something like emoji or emojis, whether you want the plural S or not, it doesn't matter, that different platforms display the same emoji in different ways and sometimes various different ways. The same platform can display the same emoji. I mean, I'm talking Twitter or whatever, not the e-discovery platform can display the same emoji differently at different times. Then you pull this over into e-discovery. Have you even had to try to tackle that issue?
Well, emojis, it's funny, it came up. I was talking about, pulling Twitter and doing sentiment analysis. We've tried, there's different sentiment analysis algorithms out there. And the cool thing is you can try a lot of them for free and play with them and see what the results are. Some of the sentiment analysis algorithms we use handle emojis. And so if you give, somebody the smiling thumbs up, oh, this guy's in a good mood. But I'm always asking, this is funny, I always ask this whenever someone talks about sentiment analysis, I go, is this factoring in sarcasm at all?
Right.
Where's the sarcasm detector
the smiling thumbs up followed by the, angry face.
Right, your boss going, can I get that from you in 15 minutes? And you're like, yeah, sure thing. But yeah, no, emojis, it comes up all the time because it's when we capture the data from Twitter, you have to capture the emojis. It's just how people are communicating now. It's so different. Actually, you reminded me, I was working on a case last week based in Japan, and they were using acronyms when they were talking in WhatsApp. And we had a young reviewer on the team flag something as really suspicious between two. And I go, what is that? It's just a bunch of letters. And he explained to me what the acronym meant. And I would have had no idea. I would have breezed right past that communication. And so it occurred to me in e-discovery, someone needs to invent and not to pick on the millennials, right? Because there's a new generation now, Gen Z or whatever. We need the millennial Gen Z translator, so we can say when we run it through, what are these people actually talking about in terms of acronyms, emojis? Because it's not always evident.
Not at all. We need a whole translation kit just for that.
That's true.
Yep. Looking forward, what do you see the future holding?
Wow. So
not to ask a broad, open-ended question.
I see flying cars. Every time my daughter gets in the car with me and she's like, "Hey, Daddy, teach me how to drive," I go, "You're not going to need to know how to drive. Cars will fly by then."
Yeah, George Jetson.
Yeah.
What else do you see?
I'm curious. Probably you and everybody else in technology about all this Chat GPT stuff. I'm having lots of scary conversations with friends. Even though I'm in the technology industry, you might feel the same way, George. I'm always scared by technology. I kind of yearn for the older days when we had to do stuff on our own. But now it's like with Chat GPT, I don't know if you're a high school English teacher, how do you know the kid handed in his own paper? So we were talking about how email conversations are going to go. If let's say we're a Reveal customer and I say, George, I need this done in the product, and I could just tell the computer, write a dissatisfied email to George explaining this, and then you could tell your robot, write a responsive email to Mike conceding something, and then so we could just
I see where that's trending. You and we're going to disappear out of the feature.
We could just be sitting on the beach telling a computer to sit there, and so I don't know if that's where the question was supposed to take me.
It's wherever you want to take it.
But some of that stuff is, I think, being incorporated into e-discovery. So I was thinking, now you're going to tell the computer, hey, computer, process data for these 10 custodians, do a relevance review for these 10 tags, filter on privilege, redact, do the production, and send it to my email by Friday. And by the way, I'm going on vacation. And then the AI is just going to do all the work. So I don't know how far away we are from that, but then maybe we won't have jobs.
I suspect something else will come along as well. There are two sides to the whole generative AI question. One is, how do we make use of those capabilities in what we do, whether it's delivering a platform, delivering services, whatever it might be. The other is, what do we do with that content when that is the content that we need to work with? What capabilities do we provide? What capabilities and services do you offer? How do you deal with it internally?
Right. I think we still have to answer a lot of those questions.
We have a lot of questions. Any thoughts on those questions?
Oh, man. Well, we're continuing to utilize new technology as it becomes available. So whenever you guys put out something new, we're putting Reveal 11 through its paces, and a lot of other technologies out there. And so, I think the idea, and this has always been the way in e-discovery, is how do you do more with less people, because the data is getting bigger. When I started in 2005, I would be training rooms of 30 associates, and that doesn't happen anymore. You get one unlucky person at the law firm who's stuck with the e-discovery, and you go, well, let me help you get through this. So whatever we can do as far as analytics, predictive coding, whatever this chat GPT stuff is going to bring us, we'll make use of it.
You've mentioned now a couple of times predictive coding and analytics more broadly. What are you doing on that front?
Yeah. So, we applied it for this review for this project in Japan I was talking about. So I think anytime you can get a sample with, somebody who knows the case really well coding it, and this isn't new, right? This has been around for a while. If you can apply that more broadly across the data population to pull in similar things, you can cut to the chase. I think the goal is less and less reviewing all the documents, right? No one wants to review documents anymore.
Right.
So it's finding the important things. Like, we know there's 100 important 100 important documents in this population of 1 million documents. How do we find them the fastest? So if you can work with the people who really know the case up front, so the investigators, what are you looking for? Try to give them at least maybe a couple docs or examples like that. And they go, yeah, this is it. Then we're using analytics to find docs like that. And I think that's kind of skipping to the end, if you will. And then you've got to do the things where you go back and, everybody loves this story. I'm like, well, let's sample the stuff we didn't look at just to make sure, right? And it makes everybody feel a lot better. You can document that statistically. But I think you're kind of figuring out what the end goal is, using analytics to find the things you need to get to the end goal as soon as you can, and then working from there.
I know for me, I might have taken a couple hundred documents to a deposition, certainly not to a hearing. And at a trial, if you're introducing hundreds of documents, you just need to figure out how you explain to your client you lost that case.
Right. You're going to lose the jury on those.
So the idea always that we have to find everything of everything seemed less important to me than the notion that you need to find the key things that are going to help you put that story together, that you need to present to, whether it's the client, opposing party, the judge, mediator, arbitrator, whomever it is.
And it's funny, like, some people get that. I remember when we first started talking about predictive coding and precision and recall, and you would explain the concepts of precision and recall to an attorney, and you go, we have 80% recall. What does that mean, Mike? We found 80% of the relevant stuff. So we missed 20%?
Right.
And I'm like, well, yeah, but you always were. Now I can just document statistically how much you were always missing. Because they did some study back then. Even if you had a human review every doc, I think the number was your average recall is about 61%. So you were always missing 39%, just nobody told you.
Yeah, I participated in a small study and then did an even smaller study myself where I became my own test subject in that.
Okay.
From which I determined that no sane person should ever hire me as a reviewer because I couldn't be consistent from the same set of documents twice. I came up with different results. I didn't catch the things people cared about the most.
Right.
But then that's not. So the question becomes, okay, what are we really trying to achieve here?
Yeah, and anybody who's been part of
place for all of that.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's important. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient.
And you were having trouble being consistent as a reviewer of one. I know we've all been on these managed review projects where there's like 100 people. You go, how do these 10 people here, how are they coding the same way as these 10 people here, even though they have daily check-ins?
Yeah.
So yeah, humans are infallible. Whatever we can use the technology to make us better, I'm all for it.
Yep. Well, Mike, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Mike Gaudet, again, is with JS Held. I am George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live. And Mike, thank you.
Appreciate it, George. Enjoy New York.
You too.